So again, where I left off was thanking the requesters for this meeting and giving me this opportunity to also update Parliament and the public at home and the justice workers themselves on the status of this process. I want to start off by acknowledging what we all know. This process has taken longer than expected, and I fully understand the growing frustration. That frustration is not merely felt in this hall, but first and foremost, among the dedicated workers of the justice chain. This is also why I have consistently and constantly communicated through the press and the unions to give updates where I can. Nevertheless, some background. When I assumed office, one of the first challenges I encountered was the lack of clarity and consistency around how the placement process was being handled. There was no uniformity, no single point of reference, and from what I had seen, processes were changed across batches. To complicate matters further, one of the key civil servants who had served as the driving force, the engine, behind producing the batches under both of my predecessors, departed the ministry shortly after I took office. That loss of institutional memory and operational knowledge, combined with already limited organizational capacity, made it even more clear. What I inherited was not a system that could simply be continued. It required structural review and realignment. With all the good intentions we've had as the ministry, this has also been a learning experience. It is the first time in our country's history that a project of such scope and complexity is being undertaken. And as with any first, this has not been without its growing pains. These challenges have made one thing absolutely clear. The validation process is not just important, it is critical. It is the safeguard that ensures the integrity of the entire exercise. We cannot afford to rush ahead only to create more confusion, errors, and dissatisfaction. This became especially evident with batch 12, which was the first batch that I had received merely to countersign, let me add, and to distribute back in December. My predecessor, who is sitting here in the hall today, was the one responsible for creating the batches along with the ministry prior to that. Of the 25 individuals that I handed a national decree to that day, 20 of them expressed dissatisfaction to me, pointing to inconsistencies or mistakes in their placement or their compensation. That moment warranted pause by my person. It was a clear sign that despite our best efforts, something was not working as it should. That is why we are now in the final stages of engaging with SOAB to independently carry out a validation process. This is necessary not only to correct what has gone wrong, but to build a transparent and reliable foundation for all the remaining placements. It is the only responsible path forward. At the same time, we're also looking closely at revamping the objection procedure. We've seen firsthand that the current process does not sufficiently support the concerns of personnel in a clear or inclusive way. Moving forward, our aim is to introduce a more transparent and accessible objection process, one that empowers civil servants to raise concerns, receive timely responses, and feel confident that their voices are heard and taken seriously. I will elaborate further on that later in the presentation. I want to assure Parliament and the justice workers themselves that I remain fully committed to finalizing this matter, not just to move the process along, but to ensure that when we do it right. We owe our justice workers nothing less than that. With that, I wanted to now move over to the presentation itself, where I'll take a brief walk through the current status, along with the next steps that we intend to take in more detail. So this is an overview here of the entire placement process overview as of today, as of May 2025. There were a total active number of justice workers on January 1st, 2023, were 530, I should say, since January 1st, 2023, because even if you entered into service during 2023, you are still included in this process. Of this 530, I should also add that not all of these individuals will receive a Landsbesluit. We have some people that are, as we call, arbeidscontractanten, that have the Dutch nationality, or that do not have the Dutch nationality and are therefore not eligible to receive a LB, but that does not mean that they will not be corrected and receive a proper placement and a proper salary correction. So this is why sometimes when you add up all the numbers, it maybe won't come up to this amount. So I ask that you keep that in mind. So far of this amount, as of May 2025, 289 LBs have been issued. Batch 13 was sent up to the governor and included 23 LBAs. 2 of those were removed and will need corrections. Those individuals actually asked themselves that their LBA be removed because there were still some issues in their files that they wanted to see corrected. So 23 are currently at the governor awaiting signature. Then we have those that are pending are 189, and I'll go over to an overview here of the breakdown throughout the ministry. So the yellow lines are those from batch 23 that are currently pending with the governor. And then, of course, we will see then the gray are those that still need to take place. Then the retroactive payments. Of course, only batches 1 to 12 have been paid out completely, as batch 13 is still pending. So to date, that amount in retroactive pay is roughly 6.4 million guilders, brutto, which has been paid to a total of 278 justice workers. 6 are pending payment, and 5 individuals had no financial change in their placement. Then the current status of the following batches. As I mentioned, 13 is a mixture of various departments, and those are with the governor for final signature. And in order to make up for the delay that we've experienced so far in being able to really churn out these batches, our intention is to combine batches 14 and 15 into one. This will be every department, all remaining workers except for the prison, because as you'll notice in the slide before, nobody in the prison has received a placement up to today. And I do find it important that what we've noticed throughout the process as well, and it's an issue that I'm dealt with all the time when people are like, Minister, it's not fair. For example, I'll take the example of police officers. You have 2 officers sitting in the same vehicle together, doing the same type of work, yet one of them has received the LBA and the proper salary and the other one isn't. And that also causes disunity within the organization, and it gives a crooked composition, and it causes problems on the work floor is what we've experienced. So what we want to do is, again, combine batches 14 and 15 to then handle all of those that are remaining, so all other departments except the prison. And then our intention is to do the prison in one batch. So batch 16 will comprise the entire staff of the Point Blanche prison. Then to the objection procedure. As I mentioned, what we were noticing now, the way that we were currently handling objections is that a person at one point received a placement from the ministry. God knows how much later, you then get your landsbesluit, but there was no real communication in between. People were able to ask for corrections to their placement. Not everybody always received a response. Sometimes people receive the response saying, yes, we will take it into consideration, but then they get a landsbesluit that still has the first placement on it and not the correction. And at that point, we've already issued a landsbesluit. It's gone through the entire advisory process. It's gone to the governor. And then at that point, we're asking people to again object, and then you have to start the train all over again. So what we've said is, let's do this a little bit differently. Let's make it inclusive. Let's explain to the justice workers what is going on, why their LBA is the way it is, and any additional information. What we've seen, and this is why, too, the validation is so important, and that'll be on the next slide, but sometimes the files aren't complete. And then the ministry, throughout the way, gets more information because they look into different systems. And then they're like, oh, wait, I need to fix this person's landsbesluit, but that's never communicated to the justice worker. So the first time they learn of this is when they get something in front of them that isn't what they had actually received previously. And that explains the issues that I had in batch 12 when you have somebody, when I'm like, hey, you happy, right? You got it? And then it's, oh, but that's not what was on my placement, or I sent a correction and now it's not there. And you get people, we get unrest, and we're further in the process, and an individual still feels like they haven't gotten their rights, like they haven't been acknowledged by the government. So we said, let's look at this again. And in doing so, what we found was the objection committee was established on the basis of the Social Statute, which was something that was used after 10-10-10 for the placement of government workers. However, strangely enough, the work procedures of the objection committee were not in line with the Social Statute. So on the basis of the Social Statute, it says you get a placement, or you get an offer, you get an intention from the minister to make a certain decision. So in this case, it's a draft besluit. And from there, you can object to that draft within 30 days. So What we've said now is we will now break down the objection procedure as follows from batch 14 and on. Batch 13, because those batches we wanted to get out, those individuals will still be able to object to the objection committee. However, from batches 14 and on, the process will be that you will now receive a draft LBA from the minister, from the ministry, along with your entire file and any additional information that the government received. And you will then be told, look, based on our verification, our validation, this is what your placement should be. Do you have any additional information? Do you have an objection or any corrections that you would like to see made? If the person has an objection, they have 30 days to object to the draft to the objection committee. The objection committee will function independently from the minister. There are also 2 representatives of the union in the objection committee. I'll say here too that we had 2 members of the objection committee that was installed last year resigned. So we've since now, I actually just today signed a contract and an agreement with somebody to take over as chair of that committee, and then we'll draft a new LBA for them as well. But basically then the objection committee would issue an advice to the minister, which in principle is binding, unless of course, in everything it's a binding tenzij, zwaarwegende gronden. That's the way it's written in the Sociaal Statute also. But if there's no objection, then your file is complete. Then you go into phase 3. The advice process starts, and then it goes up to the governor. It's countersigned by the minister, etc. And we feel that including the justice worker earlier into this procedure will really help the process.
.24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
I would like to use this platform to thank members of Parliament for the opportunity to have this discussion this morning. Mental health is a serious problem within our community that requires a joint effort and a comprehensive approach. For this reason, I would like to acknowledge the two previous ministers, Minister Omar Otley and Minister Veronica Janssen, for their efforts in raising awareness on and their contribution on this topic. On another note, policy and legislative-wise, we are nowhere near where we need to be as a government to be able to respond to the needs of the community. As minister, I am committed to making the ideas and drafts that were initiated under the two previous ministers a reality by pushing forward the necessary policy developments, legislative changes, and implementation strategies to ensure that the needs of our community are adequately addressed. This is one topic that I for sure am not playing politics with. And for that, I want to acknowledge the way that the House of Parliament has also joined in the discussion in helping to raise and bring awareness on this topic. The topic of mental health is an extremely broad one that touches so many different areas. Personally, I believe this discussion this morning will be one of many on this topic. Also, I think we might have to divide this broad topic into subtopics, as the matter of mental health is a serious one in St. Martin that needs our urgent and complete attention. Because mental health is a St. Martin concern and not a VSA problem, a mentally healthier St. Martin starts with all of us. What is mental health? What does it stand for? If we look at the definition of the World Health Organization, mental health stands for a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, cope with their normal stress of life, can work productively, and is stable to contribute to their community. Social determinants of mental health. All of the listed social determinants, such as access to food, quality education, a safe working environment, and stable housing, are deeply interconnected and collectively shape an individual's mental well-being. When these fundamental needs are met, they create a foundation of stability, self-worth, and a sense of purpose. On the contrary, when these areas are lacking, such as in cases of unemployment, poor living conditions, or limited access to healthcare, it can lead to a chronic stress, anxiety, and feelings of hopelessness. Each factor, whether directly or indirectly, influences a person's mental state, making it clear that mental health is not a medical issue, but a social one. State of mental health in St. Martin. Taking the previous slide into consideration and applying it to the current state of society in St. Martin, several key factors contribute to the alarming rise in mental health challenges on the island. Firstly, cultural stigma and deeply rooted societal barriers continue to prevent many individuals from seeking the care that they need. Mental health remains a taboo subject in many communities, leading to widespread underreporting and untreated conditions. Secondly, the compounded trauma of Hurricane Irma, followed by the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, has not only affected our society physically in terms of housing, finances, and employment, but has also pushed many individuals to the brink of emotional and psychological despair. In this context, for many others, unemployment, lack of access to proper care, and insufficient social and financial support continue to serve as a significant barrier to seeking help, whether directly linked to the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, COVID-19, or as separate ongoing challenges. As indicated in my introduction, Mental health is an extremely broad topic that not only touches different sectors, has different subtopics, but also touches the different organizations and types of addictions. For this initial meeting, I will share some of the data from the Ministry of VSA and Mental Health Foundation as it relates to involuntary admission. Data from private therapists and other foundations such as Turning Point, for example, are not included. However, I do think soon we must include data from all key stakeholders that contribute in addressing mental health challenges in St. Martin. I will now go over to some basic data that supports the previous slide. The overview on the screen is from the past 3 years and the first quarter of 2025. In 2022, there were 29 cases reported. In 2023, there were 35 cases reported. In 2024, there were 28 cases reported. For the first quarter of 2025, there have been already 14 cases reported. What stands out at this moment is that this is a result that reflects already 50% of the total of 2024, only in the first quarter. The next slide provides an overview of the number of patients treated by Mental Health Foundation from 2021 to 2024. This overview shows a gradual increase of 791 cases in 2021 to 896 cases in 2024. However, it only shows the cases that Mental Health Foundation dealt with. It does not give an indication of the increase of patients receiving services from private therapists and their increasing waiting lists. The following sheet gives a detailed overview of the Mental Health Foundation patients. As you see, there has been an increase of 105 patients from 2021 to 2024. I would like to ask the honorable members of Parliament to take note of the age group 15 years and under. There is an increase of 159%. While looking at this chart, what is also alarming is the significant number of treatments that were provided to patients. Admission treatments went from 990 in 2021 to 1,705 in 2024, while daycare treatment went from 2,968 in 2021 to 6,253 in 2024. The following slide provides a clearer view of the increase in patients who are under the age of 15 that were treated from 2021 to 2024. 2021, we had 151 persons treated. 2022, we had 102. 2023, 108. 2024, 132. All patients under the age of 15. In looking at the state of mental health since I was sworn into office, these are the main challenges we are facing as it relates to being able to tackle mental health. A major challenge is the lack of skilled mental health professionals on the island. This is due to either their unavailability or the slow administrative process involved in securing employment. On top of this, the salary offered is not attractive enough to draw in more qualified individuals. Another significant issue is the stigma and the cultural barriers that prevent many people from seeking care. Alongside this, we face the problem of weak data and monitoring system, which hinders our ability to effectively address mental health needs. There is also a lack of sufficient public awareness and prevention programs for which worsens the situation. Moreover, outdated legislations and policies, or sometimes the complete absence of relevant laws, continue to limit the progress we can make in mental health care on St. Martin.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting, twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation, splendid and scenic accommodations, Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
What's up, everybody? My name is Rav Kintav, and I'm one of the co-organizers of the Foga Salt Factory cleanup, with the main organizer being Mr. Paul Ellinger. And we are just here, to give back to St. Martin. That's the key thing, and to encourage people to want to give back into St. Martin, just by way of taking some time off to clean up the place. You know, the Foga is a protected cultural heritage site. You know, it's a monument, and unfortunately, it has been littered and polluted, and it's so unsightly to the fact that it was almost not accessible nor visible to the public.
When we talk about FOGA, we are talking about something that was created in the past, partially for a pump and partially to grind salt. And you can see the big wheels that are still there from the concept. The water that you see here, all of this water does not belong here. The water does not belong in FOGA. Today in the water we have turtles. So moving the water is another challenge, and so we are trying our best to work together with the natural environment and with the preservation of our heritage.
So we believe, by doing this cleanup, more persons will be aware of a very critical monument that is pivotal to, the story of St. Martin, which is integrated with the salt pond and its history there, which, led to the creation of St. Martin people, in essence. Most importantly as well, I think today is a reminder of our cultural heritage as far as jollifications are concerned, when the communities used to come together to help people build their homes, farm their lands. And this is a jollification for the island, for St. Martin itself. And we really appreciate the donations that we got in terms of the soups that were donated, including items from Bel Air Beach Hotel. We had Wilco, West Indies Landscaping Company, they donated their trucking service, as well as Fast Professional Transportation with their trucking services, and Carrefour, they donated drinks and much necessary protein bars to keep people energized. So, and we appreciate different individuals as well who contributed bags and gloves and rakes. So we really look forward to the next one. It's going to be great. And again, let's do this for St. Martin. That is all that matters for country.
I'm not trying to find out.
Oh, Lord.
Big treasure.
I would like to thank everyone that came out today. I would like to thank Mr. Ralph Contav and Paul Ellinger for the awareness that they brought about, and all the community organizations and the persons that came out of their own in order to do this cleanup.
The main thing we want to encourage as well is that look out in the community and see what you can do. There's so much that we could do and accomplish as a people. So that, God bless you.